Gran Turismo fans, welcome to Tokyo. Now, we're going to be back here in December for the World Finals, but right now is round 2 of the Manufacturers' Cup of the Gran Turismo World Series. Porsche are leading the way after round 1 in Milan, but Ferrari and AMG are very close behind. We're going to jump over now to the Polyphony Digital Studios, the home of Gran Turismo, to find out how the 12 Asia Oceania drivers are going to do. It's round 2 of the Manufacturers' Cup. Let's go, baby.
Well, welcome along to the second round of the Gran Turismo World Series in 2026. Earlier this year, we kicked things off in Milan in May, and now we go racing once again for round 2 happening in Tokyo.
Yes. Hello and welcome. We are here at Polyphony Digital. Genki desu ka? It's so fun having all of the team behind the game here. It's actually pretty cool. Honestly, the office here in Tokyo is one of the coolest offices I've ever been to. Not that you're probably going to see it because it is all about the racing. But if you do happen to win, one of the Gran Turismo World Series, you do obviously get, your prize, but also you get to put your name above the bar here, which I feel is at least definitely high on everyone's list, I'm sure. PDI, are we ready for some racing? Yeah? Okay. How excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
1,000 for me.
That's pretty high. You guys better drive well wherever they are. Well, we're so excited to bring you the Manufacturers' Cup today. But before we get into all that, we do have a very, very special video from Mazda.
皆さんこんにちは。松田の前田です。RX Vision GT3 コンセプトがグランツーリスモに収録されてから約6年が経ちました。その間、グランツーリスモワールドシリーズでは毎年松田代表の選手たちがこの車で走ってくれています。また世界中で40万人以上の方にこの車を使っていただいています。私その姿を見ながらずっと心の中にあったのが、この RX Vision、もっとレーシングカーとして進化させることができないかという思いでした。RX Vision が持つ美しさや存在感、それは絶対に壊したくない。その上で走りの進化を描くこと。検討を始めると、松田のデザインメンバーからはいろいろなアイデアが出てきました。それをポリフォニーデジタルの皆さんと共同で細部まで妥協せず一緒に作り込んでいきました。この競争の機会を提供していただき、心から感謝しています。そしてこの度、マツダ RX Vision GT3 Evo としてグランツーリスモへの収録が決定しました。プレイヤーの皆さん、ぜひ期待して楽しみに待っていてください。そして、ぜひこの進化した RX Vision を自分の手で走らせてみてください。よろしくお願いいたします。
Well, what a special car to be coming to Gran Turismo 7, Jimmy. The first ever Evo GT car.
Yeah, I think it just shows the parallels that Gran Turismo has to the full metal racing as well. I mean, there's Evos, of course, the BMW Evo M4 as well, Evos in the Mercedes, and now, of course, in Gran Turismo, the first ever Vision GT3 Evo car. Very, very exciting.
Now, Gran Turismo World Series superfans might remember my next guest from the Amsterdam Showdown, driving for Mazda many, many years ago, but is now actually working for Mazda. Please give a big, huge PDI and Gran Turismo World Series welcome for Shitara Ryu. Welcome. So lovely to have you here. So maybe we can start with, what's your role been with this car?
今回この車の開発にどういうふうに関われたんですか？
はい、私自身デジタルモデラーといった職種ではあるんですけども、今回はコンセプトの企画、そしてデザイン検討、さらに 3D での制作まで幅広く携わらせていただきました。今回のプロジェクトにおいて特に大きかったのがグランツーリスモのプレイヤーとしての経験でした。ユーザーが何に期待しているのか、そしてどういったところに魅力を感じるのか、そういったところをチーム内で共有しながら、より多くの皆様に楽しんでいただける一台を目指して開発を進めました。
Yeah, so I am a digital modeler. That's my job at Mazda. But I was actually able to be involved in the concept design in pretty much almost all areas of development, from concept planning to design evaluation and creation of the 3D data. So it was great that I was able to apply my knowledge as a player. I think that was the biggest part of this project. I shared the key points that users all desire for the car with all the team members and worked to make this a car that as many people as possible would fall in love with.
What would you say are some of the key design points of this car?
この車の主要のデザイン要素はどういったところにあると思いますか？
はい、今回のデザインテーマは速さ、美しさへの渇望でした。レーシングカーとしての進化を表現するために、戦うマシンが持つリリースさであったり美しさといった要素をさらに強化しました。特にミラー越しであったり後方から見た際の存在感といったところもさらに強化しています。
So one of the main focuses in the design of this car at this time was really the speed and the desire for speed. We really worked to reinforce the stoicism and the beauty of the car so that it really has a presence when you look at the car in the rearview mirror or if you're chasing the car from behind.
And what kind of parts did you sort of personally focus on yourself? What were your main focuses?
個人的にすごくフォーカスを当てていた部分というのはどういったところでしょうか？
はい、私自身最もこだわったのがリアリティ、そしてロマンの追求です。フロント、サイド、リアそれぞれのバランスを見直して、特にロア周りを中心に空力の詳細を最大限アップデートしました。そして私自身何よりレーシングカーはロマンあふれるものであってほしいと常に思いながら開発を進めていました。そのため車の随所にユーザーの皆さんが目を留めていただけるような遊び心のある要素をたくさん盛り込んでいます。ぜひ実際に見つけて楽しんでいただけると嬉しいです。
Yeah, so personally, I really focused on the reality of the car and to give it that romantic allure. We really worked on the aerodynamic processes all the way around the car. And we really wanted to have that romantic allure so that people will stop and look at it and really notice the different elements that I poured into this car. There's a lot of things that I want people to notice about the car.
Okay, do we win a prize if we notice? I'm just kidding. So what was your experience like, making this car, but sort of specifically, for Gran Turismo?
じゃあグランツーリスモ専用にこういった車を作るというのはどういった体験でしたか？
そうですね、もう僕自身未知の領域でもう非常にワクワクしながら開発を進めていた記憶があります。
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was unknown ground. It was like stepping into a new world for me.
And one slightly more personal question from me, which was, being a Gran Turismo player, did you ever think it was going to lead to having a super cool job at Mazda? You probably don't think about that, right?
これ GT のプレイヤーとして始まっていつかこういったマツダの仕事にまでつながると想像したことはありましたでしょうか？
いえ、全く想像していませんでした。
Yeah, I had not imagined such a thing at all.
See, this is why everyone should be allowed to play video games all the time. See? It's good, it's good. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. The car looks amazing, and I'm sure everyone's going to be so excited to play it in-game very, very soon. So let's give them a big round of applause, please. Super cool. Dream job. I suppose we probably should get on with a bit of racing. Do you want to meet some of our drivers for today? What do we think? Yeah, you want to meet the drivers? All right, let's meet them.
Well, so wonderful there to hear from Ryu-san. Now time then to meet our drivers who will be competing in the Manufacturers' Cup. Up first of all, driving for Lamborghini is Japan's Yuki Kodaka. He returns to the GT World Series after a 3-year absence as he makes his way onto the stage here at the Polyphony offices in Tokyo. Lamborghini finishing P11 last time out in Milan. Next up is Kanata Kawakami for Lexus. Lexus manufacturers champions on 2 occasions with this driver behind the wheel. They won it in 2018 and they won it back in 2024 also. Next up we meet Tsuki Nebatani for Subaru, a 6-time GT World Series event starter. He's had several online wins as well, so keep an eye out for his performances here tonight. And then we meet Danesh Wigliswaran from Malaysia in the Volkswagen. 4 GT World Series starts to his name. Let's see what he can do in the VW Beetle here tonight. Next up, we then meet Sai Suzuki driving for BMW. He was the top regional qualifier in the Asia-Oceania region. He's won 2 event wins in the GT World Series over his many years of competition. And then we meet Toyota's Kenta Morimoto, I beg your pardon. 26 years old, a 5-time GT World Series starter. Toyota languishing somewhat in the standings, though, after the opening round of the season, down in 10th place overall. Next up is Sota Morimoto for Audi. Audi struggled a little bit last time out with their overall results, and they'll be hoping for better fortunes here this weekend, with Morimoto behind the wheel making his GT World Series debut. Mazda's Ryota Kokuma, the 2023 Manufacturers' Cup champion. 27 years old he is now, and a veteran as part of the GT World Series. Hiroshi Okamoto for Nissan, a 13-time GT event World Series starter, a 1-time winner as well. He'll be competing for the Nissan team and certainly hoping for better fortunes here this weekend. Kojiro Sasaki lines up for Mercedes-AMG in his second full season in the GT World Series. The 23-year-old will be looking to charge forward through the field. Jun Hashima with Ferrari for the 3rd year in succession as well. Ferrari 2nd place after all was said and done in Milan. And finally, we meet the reigning Manufacturers' Cup champions, this time with Takuma Sasaki at the helm. They won the championship last year, but also, crucially, won the opening round of the season, courtesy of Jose Serrano. Can Sasaki make it 2 wins from 2 events? Well, those are our 12 drivers who make their way on to the stage here in Tokyo, ready for racing action to begin. And now it is time then for the national anthem of our host nation here in Japan.
さあそれではですね、ここで開催国日本国歌の演奏です。会場の皆様ご起立をお願いいたします。
Well, the national anthem of Japan plays out then here in Tokyo ahead of round 2 of the GT World Series. A reminder of the manufacturers, they're going to be lining up then on the grid. These have been selected from the online qualifiers over the course of the 2026 season. And of course, they'll be lining up on the grid at every single race. You can see 12 teams of 3 drivers. We had EMEA at round 1 in Milan, Asia Oceania here in Tokyo. Then we go to the Americas for round 3 in Singapore. And then all of those regions, Jimmy, coming together for the World Finals, crucially.
Yeah, of course. So the format here, really, you should be strong in every round. It's a championship format, of course. You tend to have double points at the end of the series, but it means you still need to be in a good position going forward. Right now, Serrano and Porsche, they set the tone in Milan. 6 points for them, 4 points. And here are your nice little cups and prizes coming up for this round. So we'll see if they can have a repeat of Milan Porsche.
Yeah, that was certainly be hoping to. Let's catch up then with Takuma Sasaki, the driver for Porsche.
Obviously, you're ahead to start with. How are you finding this so far, like coming into the Manufacturers Cup?
ポルシェのドライバーに今回なってマニファクチャーシリーズ参戦なんですけど、これまでどうですか？
そうですね、去年ワールドチャンピオンチームのポルシェで戦うことと、あとやっぱりチームメイトが強力なんで、ちょっと足を引っ張らないかすごく緊張してます。
Yeah, so I'm with the world champion team of last year, and my teammates are fantastic. So I'm just worried that I might be dragging them down. So I have to be careful about that.
That was literally going to be my next question. Was going to be, you've got these like amazing drivers around you. I mean, but they're surely supportive. You must have had a phone call or something. Have they given you any sort of advice?
ちょうどその質問しようと思ったんですけど、ものすごいドライバーがチームメイトにいるから、でも彼らはサポートしてくれてはいるんですよね。電話とかで話したりしました。
もちろんタイム計測だったりとかを手伝っていただいて、自分の速さっていうのを磨くのに、一緒に練習を手伝っていただいたりとかしているので、自信はもらってます。はい。
Yeah, so of course, they help me out with polishing my lap times. Every week we get together and try to improve. So I am confident.
Confidence, good. We like confident. That's good. Obviously, we're in Japan. There's no flying over the seas and having jet lag. Does that add or take away pressure? Because this is the perfect version, right? No excuses.
今回日本で開催ということで飛行機に飛ばなくてよくて、そのジェットラッグも時差ボケもないし、これはプレッシャーになりますか？それともプレッシャーがない状態なんですか？やっぱりもうパーフェクトコンディションだから言い訳できないじゃないですか。
そうですね。言い訳できないので、負けた時が怖いんで、もう勝つことだけ考えて頑張りたいと思います。
Yeah, you're right, and there is no excuse if I lose here, so I'm only thinking about winning now.
You'll be fine. You'll all be fine. It's all going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. So let's give a round of applause for our 12 Asia Oceania drivers. Really great. And right now we have a rather special announcement about a Singapore time trial, so I believe. Let's find out more.
Yeah, the regional time trial is going to be taking place on Gran Turismo 7 from the 21st of August and will run for 2 weeks until the 4th of September. Participants from Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Thailand, Taiwan, South Korea, Malaysia and Indonesia are all eligible to take part. The trial will result in competitors from these regions being able to be the fastest racer and other participating territories to compete in the Singapore Regional Time Trial Challenge Gran Turismo Cup at that event. Here are some highlights, though, from the first time we went out racing in Milan back in May. You can see action began with Jose Serrano at the head of the field, followed by Maximilian Kroll in the Ferrari. There was action aplenty at the reverse layout of the Nordschleife, though. Kroll taking over the lead. It was a battle at the sharp end of the field that we really had to watch unfold throughout the race.
Yeah, and Kroll was really impressive in that Ferrari. To be honest, we didn't really see him as a main competitor, but he was harrying Jose Serrano all the way through the race. So you see that fall, these guys just separated by literally millimetres coming through here. But then on the final lap, Serrano found a way by on to the start of the final lap, I should say, it's hard to visualise this for the reverse Nordschleife, but it was great from Serrano there. And then a very well-positioned block into the flue plats, gave Serrano the trap position he needed to take victory for him and for Team Porsche.
Amazing job from Serrano, as you say, to take the win in the opening round of the season. Kroll there at his debut event in the GT World Series, having to settle for second best, but crucially getting some points on the board for the Italian manufacturer. The top 6 qualifiers then for the Manufacturers' Cup we're going to be taking place at the Fuji International Speedway. Group 3 cars on the racing soft tyres. 1 lap time attack for these drivers, so they'll get 1 out lap, 1 flyer, and that is your lot. Absolutely critical to get it right.
Always very tricky, these 1 lap attacks, because you have to really go out and push the car as hard as possible, often without knowing what the car can do. So it's a real show of skill, a real test of how you handle pressure here. And of course, Fuji, you can get it all wrong at T1, that heavy stop into the hairpin there. So a very, very fun circuit to watch. Maybe not in terms of pressure, not so fun to drive with that 1 lap attack.
Yeah, 1.1 kilometre start-finish straight for these drivers, as you say, and then that big braking zone down into turn 1. Keep an eye out as well, in particular for the final corner under racing conditions, Panasonic as it's known, because it's very tricky and quite off camber. Getting a good exit out of there is really important. Here is a reminder of the driver lineup then, the 12 who will be competing as part of the GT World Series here for the Manufacturers' Cup. Very keen to see how they are going to fare once racing action will begin. But crucially, we need to find out how they are going to line up on the grid, and this is where the top 6 qualifier will come into play. Once that's all done and dusted, then we'll get ourselves straight into the grand final. So here's the qualifying time trial. This determines the order in which the drivers are going to be lining up then. So you can see Moriyama, who will be at the head of the field for Audi, with Kodaka for Lamborghini in second place. Then it's Takuma Sasaki, who is in P3 on the grid for Porsche, who won, of course, last time out. Morimoto for Toyota, P4. Jun Hashima for Ferrari is P5. Then it's Ryos Kokubun in 6th place, ahead of Nebatani. Okamoto, Kawakami down there in 9th place, ahead of Suzuki, Sasaki, and then Danny Wigneswaran. Any big sort of hitters in there that you're noticing, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, all the manufacturers did well in round 1, have done well here as well, which is essential, of course, for this race. But Wigneswaran will be upset with that VW all the way down the back of the grid. Lots of work for him to do there.
Yeah, as you say, that's the lineup in which they're going to be heading out onto the track then for this top 6 qualifier. So we'll wait and see how this one is going to work out then, as the drivers are getting themselves ready and lined up in the sim rig. So you can see the pressure now beginning to build, especially there for the Audi driver, as we wait to get underway then. So top 6 qualifier about to begin as they head out on to the circuit then. So Ryos Kokubun will lead them out for Mazda on to the start-finish straight here at Fuji. A reminder, of course, that this will determine the grid. The general qualifier determined the order in which they went out. Now we know, or we're going to find out rather, in which order they will line up ahead of this grand final. What's going through your mind, Jimmy, as you're blasting out to the pit lane, knowing you've only got one sort of real shot at this?
To be honest, like when I've done this in full metal racing, you really have to just empty your mind of all thoughts, because you can't think about what you have for dinner tonight. You can't think about, oh, maybe it was a bit rubbish traffic getting in this morning, stuff like that. You have to really center yourself and just remind yourself of all your braking points. Remind yourself you're in a car with low fuel, with fresh tyres, and really make sure you're maximising every bit of road as well. Of course, these guys are all professionals, especially Ryota Kokubun here. He's been around, we say veteran, he's 27. Makes him feel very old when we say that. And we say 27, of course, in that Mazda as well. Not in the Evo 1 just yet. I'm sure he'll be awaiting that upgrade very patiently, but still this RX Vision has been a bit of a stalwart through the last few years here in the GT World Series events, and of course audibly noticeable by that lovely rotary, what do you call it, shriek?
Probably the latter.
Yeah.
It's this high-pitched noise, isn't it? It's very unique, and yeah, it's a lovely, lovely sounding car. It's interesting, last time out, if you look at Paul Euro, finished P5 in Milan. I spoke to him before the start of the event. I was travelling in the taxi with him from the airport to the venue, actually, and he said, look, we're not exactly expecting great results this year because we know that the balance of performance has been updated. The Mazda is subsequently a little bit slower. However, with this new Evo car coming, and also with an experienced helmsman with Kokubun, maybe they can string some results together.
I will say that Paul Euro didn't help himself in the final by exploring the grass. That wasn't an essential part of that race for him, but yeah, still, I think they can be competitive, and we're going to see now just how competitive as Kokubun comes onto his flying lap, the first driver to do so. So now you've got to try and spot your braking point on the left-hand side here, heavy on the brakes and trail off as you come towards the apex. Then it's a game of patience on exit, because these cars do have TC, But trust me, if you nail the car out of the corner, even with TC on, you lose time as the traction control tries to figure out, what do you want from me here? I can't make miracles as we now come through this very technical section. And then this long right-hander here goes on forever and ever and ever. And that front left tyre is pleading with you just to unlock the steering, but you can't until you get now through nice and tidy there. And you see Option got to use all the circuit here to set himself up very nicely for this second hairpin in the middle of the circuit. Kokubun there using all the circuit there, just about within the white lines of his inside tyres. It's looked quite clean so far from Kokubun, maybe not ultimate pace.
The final sector is the real tricky one here because it's so slow and technical. You come down in towards the Dunlop curve here at turn 10, and you sort of back on yourself, and then you've got these sort of fiddly final corners where it's a little bit off camber. You want to get the power on, then you've got to get off it, then you've got to get on it, and you just have to be so smooth and so tentative through this part of the lap. Look at Kokubun there. You can see the throttle trace on the right hand side. He's feathering his way through, just trying to find grip and traction so that he knows when he gets on the power he never has to get off it again. But as I mentioned earlier on, when we were looking at the circuit in greater detail, it's this final corner where you need to be compromising the entry perhaps a little bit to get a strong exit. If you're getting a good exit out of it, you're going to be carrying that momentum all the way down this start-finish straight.
Yeah, interesting to see him let the car roll quite a bit there through a couple of corners. No throttle or brakes, letting the car make its way through the corner. So the time to beat so far then, set by Kokubun, is a 1:38.218. Not a bad first time to put on the board here. Let's see what Hashima's got in the Ferrari. We know that Ferrari is a very competitive manufacturer this year. Second, of course, at Milan. So the pace is in the car. Is it in the driver though? So mid-engine, different layout of course to the Mazda as well, so should be in theory a little bit nicer through that midsection than the Mazda is, but a little bit more tricky in the high speed stuff. So coming now around the last corner, not quite as neat as we saw Kokubun here, but it's a drag race now down to the line, drag race of one I should say, as we now come towards the, let's say, kilometre long straight. It feels like an absolute age when you're in the car. Lap time coming across now. Will it be quick enough to beat Kokubun? It is ever so slightly by just 700ths there. So very close at the top so far. Now here comes Team Toyota.
Yeah, it was his middle sector that was really good there for Jun Hashima. Managed to gain about a tenth of a second. Lost a little bit actually to Kokubun in that final sector, but gained enough of an advantage in the first two parts of the lap really to carry that momentum through, fortunately. Now let's have a look here and see what Morimoto can do. We know that the front engine layout of this Toyota is probably a bit of a hamstring really around this Fuji circuit. Lots of sort of medium and slow speed corners, but you've got the weight over that front axle. You're going to be carrying a bit more understeer through there. It's a little bit more stable as a result of that though. Can Morimoto do anything to upset the times from the top two as he comes to take the line then? And he goes over and is P3, so the slowest of the drivers that set a time so far for Toyota. So third on the grid is the best that he will be able to hope for.
Still only separated by 2 tenths at this stage, so it really is showing that they're very close out of the circuit. So Suzuki now in the Porsche. Porsche, of course, are winners last time out in Milan, courtesy of Jose Serrano. Suzuki, of course, another long-term driver here in the GT World Series. We know he has a lot of speed, but I think maybe, to be fair to him, hasn't quite ever unlocked that ultimate speed we've seen from the really, really fast cars. Currently 1/10 and a bit down as we come into this last sector, but again, we're in this Porsche here, the Porsche kind of known in real life and in sim as well as being a bit of a handling beast, and this is where we'll see that difference made through this middle sector here. And you see maybe a little bit more work to do on the wheel here, a bit more aggressive into the braking as well, carried the throttle in a lot longer than we saw Kokubun do in that Mazda, and now we run up to this last corner, already getting some turn on here, so trying to avoid that classic Porsche understeer, does so nicely, decent exit. Will he be enough to make up that 10th and a bit he lost earlier on in the lap?
Yeah, I think like you say, the problem is he's lost that time earlier on the lap. I think he's sort of chasing your tail for the rest of it. Takiwan making his return to the GT World Series after a year or so out. Where's he going to go? He does gain time in that final sector and goes to the top of the pole. That's a phenomenal end to the lap, about 2 tenths of a second quicker than we saw from Hashima and Kokubun there. So it's all in that final sector. I'm assuming where that car's just easy to rotate, not having the sort of weight over the front axle.
Yeah, I mean, if the BOP is anything like it is, IRL, the Porsche is a little bit slower on the straights and just great in the twisties, so that's probably where we saw him gain a little bit of time back. In fact, look at the timing, it was, he had the purple last sector of anyone there, so very quick in that last technical sector. Now here comes Kodaka in the Huracan GT3. Lamborghini never really seemed to do well at these events, bless them, so hopefully we can see some decent results for Kodaka here, already in the top 6 qualifying. That is a good sign so far. Comes across the start finish line. His time though, his time is good enough for second place. Oh my word, look how close close it is right now. We've got less than 3 tenths separating all the time so far, with Moriyama last to run in the Audi.
Yeah, just 13 thousandths of a second separating Sasaki and Kodaka. That Lamborghini's working really nicely here. So the mid-engine layout cars are performing quite strongly. Now, Moriyama is in a mid-engine Audi R8. We saw this at the hands of Kylian Drumont last time out in Milan, doing okay, but not exactly setting the world on fire. Is Moriyama going to be able to do anything, though, as he aims to break the beam and elevate himself up the order? 6th, of course, at the moment, having not set a lap time, and he does go to the top of the pile, the first and only driver into the 1 minute 37s in the first part of that qualifying session then. So amazing job from Moriyama. Now we know where the top 6 are going to be lining up on the grid, and for the first time in 2026, it is Audi who will be at the very head of the field for the first time. Great lap time.
Yeah, great run by Moriyama there. We're seeing a bit of a trend here that basically the rear engine cars and mid-engine cars are the cars to have here at Fuji, with both front engine cars 5th and 6th. So Moriyama there, great lap from him, and hopefully for Audi's sake, the start of a good weekend.
Absolutely. Moriyama then will make his way back into the pit lane. Now time to just sort of exhale and breathe after that flying lap time. The final sector really was where he gained his time. First sector was pretty good. Second sector, it was all right, but he lost a bit actually. At the final sector, he was about a 10th or so quicker than everybody else. So amazing, amazing job. Here is the Fuji Speedway, and it's going to be a long race, this one. And we understand there could be some inclement weather on the way here, Jimmy.
Well, it looks that way. I mean, it looks. I think we're getting good at now identifying what water is on a circuit, but that will change the dynamic completely, of course, because you haven't got to think about your car. You've got to think about what tyres you want to be in. You've got to think about the wet lines, etc. Here, of course, is one of those cars we saw going around earlier, the Toyota GR Super Racing Concept 2018. Been with us for a while now, this car. Lots of power, front engine, doesn't weigh that much, but we saw it earlier struggling a little bit in that middle sector, and to be honest, the wet weather is only going to exaggerate that. However, we said, as you said earlier on, the flip side of that is they're going to be a bit more stable, so maybe a bit more confidence in places, maybe a bit easier to handle, where some of those rear-engine cars and mid-engine cars are going to be a bit more sketchy.
Reminder of the action then for the grand final of the Manufacturers' Cup here. Fuji International Speedway once again racing medium, soft, intermediate and heavy wet tyres available over the course of a 27 lap duration. So this is going to be really exciting. If the weather comes down at different points, it's a case of how you play that strategy. If you're on the dry tyres at that point, do you go onto the intermediates? Do you go onto the heavy wets? It depends on the rain and intensity. If it dries up subsequently later on in the race, there's going to be, I think, a fair bit of gambling going on here, and you're probably going to get some drivers that will be delighted and others who'll be disappointed. A reminder, though, of the grid for the grand final then. So Moriyama for Audi will line up on pole position, with Sasaki alongside then Kodaka for Lamborghini, Hashima for Ferrari, Mazda's Cockburn, and then it is Toyota's Morimoto. That's your top 6, and then, of course, behind that, the drivers who qualified in the general session earlier on today: Nebatani for Subaru, Okamoto for Nissan, Kawakami returning for Lexus ahead of Suzuki for BMW, Sasaki for AMG, and then Danny Wignerswaran down there in 12th place for the Volkswagen team. Well, that's how your grid lines up then. Drivers are getting themselves in place and ready. What do you think we should be expecting and looking for in this one here, Jimmy?
I mean, it's just going to be a battle. Whoever reads the weather best, whoever does
we are
that is going to be
almost
in a
ready
good
to kick
position
off
to
this
take the
grand
win
final.
today.
PDI and audience, you ready for some racing? We're ready for some racing. Let's get round 2 of the Manufacturers' Cup underway.
About to begin in the Manufacturers' Cup for round 2 of the Gran Turismo World Series here in Tokyo. The Fuji International Speedway, weather is on the way, and look at that, it's already arrived before the start of the race. What is going to happen when the drivers head down towards the first corner, but crucially when the checkered flag will fall in 27 laps time. Well, the debutant on pole position with Sota Moriyama for Audi. Alongside him on the front row of the grid, reigning Manufacturers' Cup champion Sasaki behind the wheel for this event. Lamborghini's Kodaka heads row 2, and he has got Ferrari's Jun Hashima alongside for company. Row 3, Mazda and Ryota Cockburn. Next up, it is Toyota and Morimoto. Let's see whether these front-engine cars are going to be a force to be reckoned with in these wet conditions. Nebatani for Subaru's P7, P8 is Okamoto for Nissan, and then Lexus with Kanata Kawakami in 9th position. BMW Sai Suzuki completes the top 10. Just outside of it is Mercedes-AMG with Sasaki, and then Danny Wigneswaran for the Volkswagen team lining up in P12. So then, the rain is coming down. It's wet, as you can see. Some drivers opted for intermediates, the majority of the field, but some they're opting for wets. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's worth a punt, really, if you're one of the lower down cars here. Okimoto, the leader of the cars who have opted for that wet compounder tyre, because if you just stay on the inters, you're not really going to have any sort of... Usually it's one a turn for the first lap or so because of this rolling start. But we have a long run down now to T1. A good place to maybe make a move, you're feeling brave, but also a very good place to have your race undone if you're a bit too brave. But that's up for our drivers to decide.
Well, the question is, of course, does it continue to rain? If it does continue to rain, when do you change over onto the wet tyre? If it dries up, when do you change over onto the dry tyre? And of course, nothing to say that the rain can't return later on in the race as well. It's going to be absolutely crucial to make sure you get that timing right, and that could be the difference between winning it or bidding it. A reminder, of course, that in the standings at the moment, Porsche leading from Ferrari and then Mercedes-AMG. Right then, let's go racing as Moriyama will lead the field across the line, and as we head down towards the first corner, picking your braking point is so difficult in the dry conditions here at Fuji, even more so in the wet. Moriyama then is the first driver to accept those conditions and head on the brakes, and he runs it a bit deep. That might allow Sasaki to come alongside him, and it does. Sasaki then in the Porsche, challenging on the exit of turn 1, blasting through turn 2 in the Porsche, and is Moriyama going to be able to fight back and challenge that race lead once more? Keep an eye out for Kadaka there in the background in 3rd place, and Sasaki has got it held off there as it's under investigation down at T1, so clearly there's been some other incidents.
That's his experience there. Sasaki reading the conditions a bit better. Moriyama in his first ever live event, of course, so feeling the pressure down towards T1, just running a little bit wide and losing that spot. Here's Kadaka on board. Oh, well, welcome, mate, to Moriyama to these live events. A little bit of contact there as we now come down to the chicane for the first time. This gives Sasaki a little bit of breathing room at the front. He's going to like that down to the first chicane. It's very nice to be able to run your own line, not have your eyes in the mirrors. However, if you're Moriyama, you have Kadaka and Hashima behind, so we all break down there. Everyone gets through seemingly okay for the first lap. As we now come through to the last sector, this is where we're really going to see the characteristics of these cars exaggerated by these wet conditions. And it looks like, Tom, just looking from the timing, so the intermediate tyre is the tyre to be on. These wet tyres not getting off to a good start, maybe not quite getting temperature in them at the moment.
Yeah, fair bit of standing water out there on the track, as you can see right now. And the windscreen wiper is still going, which indicates that there is rain falling of some intensity, but not necessarily a hugely heavy one. So, as you say, those wet tyres, they're probably going to offer a little bit more grip in the initial stages, but they're quite easy to overheat the surface of them if there isn't the water to clear them. But you can see, look, nose to tail as they exit out of the final turn, and they'll head across at the timing line. So Sasaki it is that leads for Porsche, then it's Moriyama for Audi, then it is Kadaka for the Lamborghini team. We're on board here with Jun Hashima, who's got a view of those top 3 in front of him, and let's see how effective the slipstream will be here in this Ferrari 296 as well. Down the start-finish straight we go. Hashima there lifting and feathering on the throttle as we head in towards turn 1.
I'm confused, sir. I would have sent her around the outside, you know. You've got to get spicy in these ones. But of course, Hashima, like many other drivers, said this isn't their first rodeo. They sort of know how these races go and how the story of the race continues. So here's a replay of T1 here. Here's what we just saw. And here, no, this is lap 1. There it is. Moriyama going slightly wide there, and Sasaki getting by. I'm not sure if that was the incident we were talking about, because nothing happened there. It just went wide.
I think it must have been further back, an incident that unfolded there, because we saw it was under investigation, but as such, no action as we can see for the time being here.
Does the rain look heavier to you, Tom?
It could possibly be coming down a little bit heavier, couldn't it?
I mean, that's, of course, very important this race. So I did see a couple of bright spots now. It seems the clouds have moved in slightly as we're on board with Kokubun. And that, of course, will then hand the conditions over to those on the wet compound of tyres. So we'll keep an eye on that as the race develops. Kokubun, again, very, very long time occupant of a seat here in the World Series here. Notice way around a track or two, and of course hanging on to the back now of this top 5 in the Mazda RX Vision. Honda, I mean, that is the lead front engine car at the moment. You can just see in front everyone having that struggle, getting the car to rotate in that last corner there. Just the tyre not quite gripping through the water. And you must think, I think it is getting a little bit more tricky for them out there. We'll keep an eye on lap times and just see which way they're going.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the wet job runners of Okamoto, Kawakami and Wigneswaran as well, because those 3 drivers started on the wet tyre, took a gamble further down the order, and they may start ascending through the field. It's still pretty tightly knit across the split at the moment, about 8 seconds or so separating first to last place after just a few laps. So looking at Moriyama on board with the former race leader, making his debut in the GT World Series, just 18 years of age he is. See him there, look, on the brakes, off the brakes, on the brakes, off the brakes, just trying to get that car stopped as best he can. Slightly deep down at turn 1, but there often is a little bit more grip actually on the outside of that first corner, and I definitely think the rain is coming down as a heavier intensity, and this is where we might see those wet shod runners starting to come to the fore here.
We're already seeing Okamoto. He's just watching the gaps there, a little bit closer to Nimitani in the Subaru. Lap time wise, they all sort of did the same lap time last lap, but I think that will change this time around. You can now start seeing the reflections there, and this is where it gets very tricky as a driver, because a little bit of contact there. Kadaka just getting it wrong again. Second time he's run into the back there of Moriyama down at the left-hander, and just goes to show how tricky it is even for the best GT drivers in the world. Now, of course, as I was saying, these intermediate tyres, they were in that window, and now they're starting to fall out of that window. The water's getting a little bit too much for the intermediate tread to clear. You see Moriyama there, even with traction control enabled, wiggling, trying to get the car out of the corner. Okamoto starting to move up the field now.
Yeah, just to give you an idea as well, Kawakami, he was fastest in the first and the second sector on this lap alone. So he's down in, what is he at the moment, 9th place, Kawakami, in that Lexus. And he was about half a second quicker in the first sector than anybody else on the intermediate tyres.
See the Kadaka there, all over the curb there. It's a bit of a tricky pickup from karting, just using the curb to hook in the car and turn it and rotate it. But that only works on a high curb. These low curbs are like ice. Special exit, those guys though are doing very well. So we're going to get a feeling now, as Sasaki continues to lead the race, at the moment anyway, of the difference between those on inters and those on the wet compound of tyres. So we see with Kokubun there, we're in the slipstream, the draft of the car in front, to try and lower the air resistance in front of us and get a bit of a higher top speed. So lap time at the front, 150.1 from Sasaki. Let's wait for Okamoto to come through now, and he does a 149.6. So, and we have Sasaki, who's it? It was Kawakami at 149.4. So they are the fastest runners on track right now, the wet runners.
But also to give you an idea as well, we were 147s at the start of this race, so we're 2 seconds slower than that as a result of those conditions worsening slightly. But I have to say, there is a slight look of a break in the clouds in the distance as well, something to keep an eye on. Now, here is Nimitani, we're on board with him. 7th place is right on the back of Morimoto. He's going to biff into the back of him, isn't he, down at T1? So that's an incident that's unfolding there in the first couple of laps, and Nimitani may incur the wrath of the stewards as a result of that. He didn't gain the place, did he? But, yeah, not ideal in terms of picking your braking point and avoiding contact.
Yeah, we call that one an open lobby lunge. That was a good effort there, but didn't quite get the car slowed down. And this is another part as well, is that braking distances are lengthened in these conditions, and sometimes it catches out a driver, especially if you're offline as well. Although, truthfully, really, these guys should be now searching for the grip. You find that the dry line in wet conditions becomes super slick because all the rubber has been pushed down into the track by the slick tyres, and usually you have to try and explore the circuit. You see it going a very wide entry there, just to make sure you can actually find a little bit of grip on tarmac. So here's Morimoto. He's currently on an intermediate tyre, having been passed by Okimoto in the Nissan. He's making his way up the grid now up to P6. Here comes Kawakami as well, also on that wet compounder tyre. And you can see there's seen a difference here for the last corner. Morimoto's got the line, but Kawakami is able just to drive it all the way around the outside. Can he keep it there or not? He can. Gets the draft, the run as well. That is the difference now in the tyre compounds between the two. So the wet runners are now a real threat to those who start on inters.
And this is the thing, isn't it? If you start on the wet tyres, you're going to, in theory, owe a pit stop less than if you have to change over from the intermediates to the wet. So that could really compromise the intermediate shop runners' races. It depends, though, as we said, on what happens in terms of the conditions and how these drivers are going to play it. Look at Morimoto then returning the favour here on Kawakami down the start-finish straight. Can he get the move done on the outside? Kawakami parks the car on the apex and manages to hold the line as we see a bit of a hip and shoulder between Sasaki and Suzuki. They were going toe-to-toe about half a lap or so ago, and they still continue to do that at the start of lap 5.
So here we go then, yeah, lap 5. Conditions seemingly worsening here at the Fuji International Speedway. Here's a replay of Kawakami and Morimoto. Now Kawakami, of course, on that faster wet compounder tyre, just drives it into the corner. Nice. He can just do it, drive it in deep and make sure he can just keep the car there, and then takes the long way around. Seldom use this line, of course, because it's a lot longer distance, but using the grippier part of the circuit in the wet, using the wet compound tyre, and just drives by him like he's standing still.
Yeah, amazing job from Kanata Kawakami then. And let's see what he's going to be able to do for the remainder of this race. Currently up into 7th place at the moment is the Japanese driver behind the wheel of the Lexus. So Sasaki rather is that leads as it stands for now, about 0.8 of a second in front of your former pole sitter Moriyama. The gap between those two has been relatively stable since he got in front on the opening lap of the race. Kodaka Hashima haven't moved anywhere from where they started on the grid. The gap though between the likes of Kokuma and Okamoto has now shrunk down. It's about 0.3 of a second between those two drivers, and you'd imagine you're going to start to see the Nissan putting a challenge on the top 5 here before too long.
We say that, I think the rain stopped, Tom, or at least as the intensity has quieted down a little bit. We haven't really got our radar that we usually have here, so it's just taking a guess based on what we're seeing here. But it looks a little bit brighter in some places. Doesn't look like the rain is coming down as hard. We can get a look at the lap time to see what we've got here. Yeah, bright in the background there. Okamoto does set the fastest time of the top 6 positions. So, yeah, I mean, it might come back to the interruns.
Yeah, it's a case of, as you say, just sort of working out the best strategy here for these drivers. Nebatani there having a look on the inside of Sasaki. He runs it a bit deep, and that's going to open the door here for Suzuki to go through. 2 for the price of 1 in the BMWs. It all got a bit sort of confused really down at that first corner, and the doors open, the seats parted quite literally for Suzuki. But yeah, definitely getting brighter out there on the racetrack at the moment between these runners, and you wonder again whether those intermediate tyres are going to start to fall back in their favour. Just looking at the lap time, still the wet shod drivers of Okamoto and Kawakami were a little bit faster last time around in some parts of the lap, but the intermediate runners again relatively similar in terms of pace, all in the low 1 minute 49s for pretty much the entire field here.
Yes, it's all bunching up. I mean, there'll be a tyre stop at some point, I'm sure. I say it was getting better, but it's hard to tell with this spray here from this camera. It looks like maybe the bottom half of the circuit is still raining quite heavily. This is, of course, an awesome feature of GT7. Is it might rain in one part of the circuit, but not necessarily the other. So, trying to get things right from that, plus driving against the best drivers in the world, is a little bit of a challenge for our GT superstars. But they're up for it. Here comes Okamoto having a go now at Kokuban. Again, that wet tyre does still seem to be the tyre to be on. Let's see what sort of punching gets out of the last corner here in that Nissan GTR GT3 car in the slipstream now. And back in the day, this car used to be a bit of a rocket in a straight line. Not really sure how it's balanced here in the game, but we know that Mazda isn't slow either. In the draft then is Okamoto, another driver that knows his way around these GT World Series events. Doesn't seem to be gaining that quickly. Might be close enough to have a lunge here into T1. We look for it, looks to the outside. Maybe, no, he's still there now with the inside. Goes inside. Can you get the car slowed down? Kokuman holding around the outside, and through he goes up into 5th position there. Nice move from Okamoto. He just seems to have a bit more grip on those tyres right now. Better braking potential, better exit, stuff like that, and up to 5th. So up 3 places from his starting position.
So interesting how that this is ebbing and flowing in this race, and almost like a lap or so ago we were saying, oh, the intermediate tyres are coming back, and now suddenly the wet tyres look like the one to be on. Give you an idea of the difference in lap times. About half a second quicker was Okamoto than Jun Hashima, and about 0.3 faster than Kokuban there as well. Meanwhile, at the sharp end of this, Sasaki had a lead of about 0.8 of a second or so quite recently. That's now down to about 0.4 of a second. We see Suzuki and Sasaki here going through to the final corner of Panasonic. Nebatani, I think, he's going to make contact with, and picked up a warning as a result of that. The problem is the line sort of merged going through there, and ultimately Suzuki deemed as the guilty party.
It's fine. There was contact. Of course, it's non-contact sport racing, as they keep telling us, but that was fine. Inconsequential. A warning is okay there. Sasaki, as you say, I mean, the gap is sort of rubber banding a little bit, but I don't think he's really getting away from Moriyama. Of course, Moriyama, his debut event, his first time on one of these events, doing incredibly well so far. 2nd place in that Audi. I'll remind you, last time out, Kylian Drummond could only manage 6th place at Milan in the Audi. So to come to your first event here and perform so well under pressure in difficult conditions in front of an audience as well, of course, the PJ office is incredibly impressive. So are we going to be seeing a pit stop now going to the right? I didn't think so. It's a bit early for that. But just see Sasaki there putting to the right, trying to break that toe, make things difficult for Moriyama, who is gaining a little bit on the straight, but will be far too far back for a move, unless he's feeling very brave. Channeling Mr. Verstappen, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. For Moriyama, despite the fact he's only 18 years of age and this is his first year of competition in the GT World Series, is a very experienced driver as part of the Gran Turismo family. He's been competing in the Under-18s online championships, raced in HRC as well over the years, and you can see the weather radar as we look at it there. Rain looking like it's in a lighter intensity, and in the distance as it's coming through quite quickly. I think it's going to stop before too long here, so this is going to be pretty critical in terms of how long they can hang on to the intermediate or indeed the wet tyres before they have to make a pit stop. You'd imagine that for the wet shop runners, Okamoto, Kawakami and Wigneswaran, they're going to have to pit sooner because obviously the tyres are going to start overheating if the track dries out.
That's where it gets difficult now for these wet guys, is because they have a good tyre now, but it will start heating up very quickly, and then they have to go onto a slick early, maybe earlier than they want to go onto it as well, which is going to make things very, very tricky indeed. Kawakami looking at Kokiban, trying to go around the outside there, as this wet tyre is still usable right now, but you have to think he's not got many laps left. I also liked on the radar there that the dark blue patch was a nice little love heart. It's like, hey, we love you, GT drivers.
Have some rain.
Here's some rain. Finished.
Yeah, Kawakami, you can see the first couple of sectors looking pretty strong through there, but this sort of final sector now. And the thing is as well, imagine that obviously it stops raining, the track's going to dry up pretty quickly. You would figure out as well here. And you can see visibly how much the rain has stopped now. The windscreen wipers are off. There's a little bit less standing water on the racing line already.
You have to think all this spray is the water being displaced by the tyre and the aerodynamic flow of the cars in front. And when the rain stops, that is basically just clearing off the circuit. It's like a giant vacuum cleaner. And within a couple of laps, you're going to see a dry line form. And that's when you have to think, right, do I gamble now and go for a slick? Can I keep my car within the confines of this dry line? And that's where it becomes very, very difficult, especially down at T1 here. As we see a move there in the background. That's Sasaki in the AMG looking up the inside of Shota, who goes very wide. Morimoto just about keeping onto the circuit, onto the marbles on exit there. Usually a bit more grip on those in these conditions. And now still side by side. Great racing here from Mercedes and Toyota driver. But Morimoto's got the line on the inside. Turns in, does Sasaki there. Would it be forced wide? Now he's got the inside line for this long right hand that goes on forever and ever and ever. But he's being kept very tight to the inside. Still inside there. There is Sasaki. I think he's got the move made. Has he? No, he's looking to the outside now. Here comes Devatani as well into the mix. So it's a three-way scrap for 9th place right now. And Morimoto getting it slightly sideways there, losing out to Sasaki and just about keeping Devatani behind. Great racing here, albeit for 9th place.
Yeah, fantastic. Really respectful. As you say, not going to count for any points as it stands for now, but nonetheless, really exciting stuff. Let's see whether the Subaru driver is going to have a look on the inside of Morimoto. He is down at turn 10. The gap was there. The position was there for the taking. So for Morimoto, loses 2 places in the space of near enough as many corners, and subsequently will go through and challenge for those positions inside of the top 10. So Morimoto drops down into 11th place for now. Then Nebatani up through in the Subaru, further place up the order. But you can see already the gap. Look at that. I mean, the 3 drivers that were squabbling, and they've already lost about a second or so relative to Suzuki in the BMW, who was pretty close to them before that all began to unfold.
Yeah, one of the tricky things you have to try and think about as a driver, and it hurts when you're out on circuit, is this overtake going to cost me? Is this fight going to cost me the longer race as a whole? Because, of course, you never want to give a place. But thinking about it, then this sort of fight here can actually slow you both down. Suzuki there on the inside in the BMW, getting past Kawakami in that Lexus. And, of course, this is where we're starting to see those wet tyres start to fall away, start to overheat. And you can see on the circuit now that darker patch. That is the water being cleared away. There's still significant spray right now, so I wouldn't think about going to a slick just yet. But it's not going to be far away, Tom.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? It's when you gamble, when you find that sort of crossover point. Lap times are now as fast as they've ever been in this race, into the 145s, 146s. At the start of this one, in the wetter conditions, we were down into the 149s, 150s. So yeah, track is definitely going to be coming back to those intermediate runners who had to sort of deal with the pain in the first third of this race, and now they're starting to reap those rewards. So for Okamoto, for Kawakami, for Wigneswaran, it's going to be a case of damage limitation at this point and sort of jumping really before they end up getting pushed.
I think what you have to do right now, if you look at lap times, I mean, Okamoto was nearly 2 seconds slower. Actually, was 2 seconds slower than Moriyama, who's in second place right now. So you have to think maybe I do one more lap here, be a rolling roadblock, and then box and hope for the best, because every lap you stay out on wet tyres, you're losing 2-3 seconds a lap on the race time as total. So you need to be brave here if you're on those wet tyres. You have no other choice, otherwise the race is going to go away from you.
Yeah, look at the clearer sort of circuit now. You can see the sunshine just in the background of the picture as the grey clouds begin to depart. There's a penalty that's been picked up for one of the drivers in the background there as we come to the timing line once more. Now, are we going to see anybody coming into the pits on those wet tyres this time around? Because again, I think we're getting to that crossover point, and Okamoto in the Nissan, the 2023 Manufacturers' Cup champions no less, carrying on in this one as it stands for now. But Okamoto now outside of those point positions. This is the move then that was made on the Japanese driver with Sai Suzuki on the inside as he went through in that final sector and just had more grip as soon as he got to the left-hander there.
I've been in that position before when you're out on old tyres and the car behind you is just a lot faster. There's nothing you can really do. I mean, you can fight it if you want, but you end up just losing more time. So I think that was wise there, Okamoto, just to open the door and say, yeah, you know what, go on, mate, I can't do anything right now, but watch out, I'm going on 6 soon probably, and I'm going to hunt you back down again.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? As you say, once they get to that crossover point, the problem is if you stuck slicks on now, I mean, it would be a race ender because it's just way too wet. There's nowhere near a dry enough line. And again, you can sort of see it. Again, it's ebbing and flowing. The windscreen wipers are coming on because that standing water in front is still being kicked up by Takuma Sasaki. We're on board here with Moriyama, getting a good view of things.
Not everywhere for Sasaki, just in the curb. I think this is the lap you come in. I think this will be it. I think if you're on the wet tyres, you have to come in now and just risk it. Put on some softs or something, put on something that will heat up quickly and send her out the pit lane. And that's the thing, when you have a slick tyre in these tricky conditions, you have to heat it up. That's where the grip comes from. So you can't afford to go out there and tiptoe around, because then you lose temperature, lose speed, and it's this death spiral of temperature. So hopefully we'll see some of these guys react like that. Now Suzuki's coming to the right hand side there. Is that to break the toe or is that to box? It looks like it's to break the toe. It's confusing the pit lane here, Tom. I keep thinking they're going to come in here.
We saw this in Monza last time, didn't we, when we were racing in the Nations Cup, where drivers were, again, sort of dummying others into the pit lane and looking like they were making those stops, but they weren't actually making those stops. And obviously such a long start-finish straight here. Okamoto then, as you said, does blink. There's no choice but for the wet shop runners. For the intermediates, it's going to be tricky enough with them beginning to overheat. For the likes of Okamoto, for Kawakami and the Nissan and the Lexus, respectively, their hand was forced there, really. They're going to go on to, presumably, a dry compound of tyre here.
Inter in the box there. I don't know if that's just a graphical thing. Let's see. As we onto the mediums. Okay, so medium compound of tyre, super important now. For these laps, this is where the leaders are going to be watching these guys now, because they're the test dummies. They're going to go out and see what it's like on these slick tyres. Right now you can see lots of spray coming out of pit exit, and as you rejoin onto that racing line where it is dry, the car is going to feel better, but we'll probably see these guys struggle for the first sector and then come alive as the tyres start to feel a bit of temperature. But we'll keep an eye on the lap times to keep you guys informed too.
Yeah, again, the lap time's still coming down for the intermediate shop runners, but the problem is, again, you can see the lack of standing water now on the circuit. There's Suzuki with a half-second penalty, by the way. That's because of track limits, but look at them moving over to off of the racing line, trying to pick up the standing water to try and cool the surface and the core temperature of these Dunlop tyres down, because the problem is they're just going to start overheating and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Let's have a look at Suzuki and that track limits penalty. So through turn 4 and just runs it past the white line on the exit of the corner.
That's the thing with an automated steward, is they don't care. If you go out, you're getting a penalty, and that was the minor or most minor track limits, but it is track limits, so it's a penalty. Now, do we see any reactions now from the top runners? Are they going to box? Are they going to stay on the inters? So Suzuki's staying out. Does Moriyama? Yes. So the top 3 stay out. Sector times, we need to have a look now and see what they're doing through the middle sector. So last sector, Okamoto and Kawakami basically did the same lap time as Sasaki. So they are on that lap time, and we're seeing a bunch of the middle, sort of middle of the pack here pop into the pits. Tsushima in, Kokubun in as well, Suzuki in, all going over to, we have to assume, a medium compound tyre.
Yeah, well, they're trying to get the undercut now here, aren't they, in this race? That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the basically the advantage. So what they'll do is they go into the pit lane here at this point. They change onto the dry tyre. They come back out in the race. They've got clear air in theory, and then what they can do is, in theory, once the likes of Sasaki, Moriyama, Kodaka, etc., all in front who haven't pitted, they'll have gained back the time that they'll have lost, and in theory can jump them once they come out the pit lane.
So Suzuki there actually opting for the soft tyre, so he's opting to go for attack early. Now what will be interesting here is whilst Okamoto is behind Suzuki and Kokubun, he is on a warmed up tyre, so he's having an advantage of having the tyre in the temperature window. It should be a bit faster for him right now, but now the attention turns to Sasaki, Moriyama and Kodaka. What do these guys do? These are really the guys that are currently in the fight for the lead of the race. Sasaki's been good all race. Moriyama is right there as well. And you have to think they're all going to box at once. I don't think going any further now is going to be worth the time.
Well, your pit leader, isn't he, is Jun Hashima in the Ferrari. He's on the medium tyre, 14.3 seconds. So if they don't pit this time around, we need to keep a really close eye on the gap. I've got to say, I think these medium shot runners all at the front end of the race, they're going to have to think about coming in this time around. Next time around will be, I think, worst case scenario.
So sector times, Okimoto and Kawakami have just set PBs through the middle sector, although through the first sector they're still not quite as quick. So Sasaki coming in, Moriyama coming in, Kodaka follows in as well. So the leaders now blink as well. They've deemed the fact this intermediate has gone as far as it can go. But what tyre will they go on for this last part of the race? Ideally you want a tyre that's going to go to the end now. So you have to think maybe the medium. We've seen a couple people on softs as well. So what does Sasaki do, our current leader in Porsche?
Yeah, he's going to go for the soft tyre, yeah. And Moriyama, I think, is going to follow him. And likewise, Kodaka actually goes for the medium tyre there. So he's deciding to go longer, hoping that the rain won't return, and then he can use the sort of longevity of that tyre relative to the sort of lack of pace it has over the softs. Just to give you an idea of the difference in pace, by the way, for Jun Hashima, who I was saying about being the pit leader, he was half a second quicker alone in the middle sector on those drivers. So that, again, their hand was forced. They had no choice because they could see that gap being eaten away. The only driver who hasn't pitted is Nebatani in the Subaru, who's trying something quite different, going long into this one, but you can see relative to the likes of Sasaki, Moriyama, etc., you're going to have a 20-second total pit loss time, aren't you? So he's going to be dropping down probably further than he would have done had he pitted sooner.
The thing is, it is slicks now. You can see just how dry it is. There's no spray at all. If you go offline, you're in trouble, so don't do that. But it is just slick tyres. So here is Hashima and Kokubun battling for what would be 7th place at this point in the race, side by side. This is where it gets tricky now because some of the circuit is dry, some isn't. Where do you pick your braking point? Kokubun there coming out the leader, just using the grunt of the RX Vision to make that and get that done. So Kokubun up into what is now 6th position.
Yep, 2020.
5th, sorry.
2023 Manufacturers Cup champion is Rios Kokubun for Mazda as well, just to remind you. So knows that team, knows that machine very well, and he's using all of that experience to his advantage. But Jun Hashima there in the medium shod Ferrari sitting behind him. The 296 of course came to Gran Turismo 7 at the back end of 2025. At the sharp end of this one you can see visibly how much the gap has shrunk down with the timing tower on the left hand side of your screen. 7 seconds it is between Nebatani and Sasaki. It's about 9 seconds or so, if not a little bit more than that, at the start of this lap alone. So Nebatani surely is going to be coming into the pit lane before too long. Hasn't done this time around, so again it's just banking on the fact that the weather's going to return and hopefully you can use those intermediate tyres. But the problem is they're going to be overheating and they're going to be well past their best even if it does.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely cooking them now. And the thing is, even these guys are dipping into the water to cool down the slicks so they can last a bit longer. Not usually a strat you see, but if it works, it works. We see Kokubun go a bit wide there, maybe cooling those slicks down a bit too much. As he goes into the hairpin at the bottom, that allows Hashima to come back at him a little bit, which is a shame because Kokubun had good pace and was putting a little bit of a gap. And now that's all undone with one simple mistake as Hashima gets very close there to the back of the RX Vision car. And bear in mind, these curbs still hold a little bit of water, so you've got to be careful dipping the wheel onto the curbs here. I've had that moment in real life where I thought the curb was dry, it wasn't, and I found myself backwards in the gravel very quickly. So you've got to be careful on these things.
Yeah, good way to go from 0 to 0. But I have to say, Hashima really looks like he's getting his act together now. He's got some heat in those tyres and he's keeping Kokubun really honest here. Turn 10 is a good overtaking opportunity. The line is getting a little bit wider in terms of the slick nature of it as well. Kokubun holds the line though and defends that position quite nicely. He isn't sort of defending fresh air or anything. He's just running his normal racing line and not succumbing to the pressure that his countryman is putting on behind. But keep an eye out as well for Sai Suzuki, because we mentioned about him earlier on. He's on the medium shot runner and has closed right up onto the back of this duo. You'd imagine it'll be pretty easy takings for him, especially down towards turn 1 with greater grip under braking. The question is though, if it doesn't rain again, is he going to have the life left in those tyres for the final 11 laps?
I mean, no, is the answer. We can see some of the tyre graphics here on our side, and the front left tyre is already half done pretty much, so it's looking pretty bad. So there's a little bit of bump draft from there. No, Suzuki goes up the inside, a little bit of contact between the two, really squeezing Hashima now, fighting for his position on the circuit, using the side draft to move by. Up into 6th place goes the BMW, and ahead of Hashima, they're using the grunt of that M6 as we now head into the braking zone. Will Hashima come back at him? No, he doesn't for now, and Suzuki slowly moving up the field on those soft tyres. Actually, saying, Tom, for him as well, I don't think he has the grip to get to the end, but we'll have to see. He's got to take it easy.
Well, the only thing he can hope for now is if it rains, because those soft tyres, he can use them to its full advantage, and then if the rain hits at exactly the right time, then you could see that coming back into his favour. Meanwhile, speaking of coming into his favour, Sasaki's just taken over from Nebatani, who for some reason is still on the intermediate compound of tyre. Tried something different, hasn't worked for the Subaru driver. Not going to be particularly brilliant for their points tally this season. No points in Milan with Callum Moxer behind the wheel, and seemingly looking like it's going to be a slow descension, or indeed even a quicker descension down the order as Moriyama goes through for second place.
Yeah,
Suzuki here on the inside of Kokkoman down at turn 10, and that just goes to show how much more grip the soft tyres have under braking as he now goes up inside the top 5 for the first time. Let's have a look at a replay here with Morimoto, Sasaki and Kawakami. So they went 3 wide down the start-finish straight, then off onto the wetter part, or the damper part of the circuit there for Morimoto, getting 2 places for the price of 1 down into the braking zone of the first corner. That's a sensational move there from the Toyota driver, getting it made on Sasaki. And Kawakami is going to be wondering if he's left the handbrake on coming out of that last turn. He went backwards so quickly.
Toyota's a rocket, eh? Like on the straight, super fast. And I was going to say, Nebatani is actually lapping about 4 seconds lap, 5 seconds lap slower than the rest of the field right now. So I think he's praying for something that isn't going to come. And if he pits now, that's it. He's just last. So, I mean, that's race undone there. Poor decision making from Nebatani.
Yeah, that's the difficulty, isn't it, when you're in a World Series event like this, and just getting the strategy call wrong there for Nebatani. You can see again a few grey clouds still lurking overhead here, so if it does begin to rain towards the end of the race, that could prove to be an interesting factor. And again, we get to that sort of crossover point, but at the moment as it stands, with just under 10 laps now remaining, Sasaki streaking off into the distance, 1 second in front of Moriyama.
Thing is, with being 5 seconds a lap slower over the course of 4 laps, that's a pit stop. So it doesn't matter if you stayed out, you're still going to lose out. So yeah, not really sure what's going on right now in the mind of the Subaru driver, but here he is on the circuit. The rolling roadblock. Here is Suzuki able just to drive around him at this point. There is no challenge put up by Nebatani at all. He knows that he's got a slow car, and you'll see it out of here on the exit as Kokkoman will basically drive into the back of him. Like, come on, mate, get on with it. Just drives around him. Thanks very much. Cheers. Up into 50 goes. Nebatani continues to struggle there on what will be some very, very used intermediate tyres at this point.
Yeah, very warm. We just saw a brief look at the graphic there, and you can see the front left in particular has taken an absolute hammering, and there's just nothing he can do to relent the charge of those drivers going through. Nebatani now drops himself down into 7th place. 6 World Series starts for the Subaru driver to this point. Several online wins. It's not going to be another one though here this afternoon, unfortunately for him, and another lacklustre weekend for the Subaru team in the GT World Series so far in 2026. Disappointment for the reigning Manufacturers' Cup champions. Sasaki, meanwhile, 1.1 seconds to the better of Moriyama. Just keep an eye on the difference in lap times, though, between themselves and Kadaka. Kadaka on that medium compound of tyre. We look here at Okamoto and Sasaki going side by side down the start-finish straight. Sasaki there with the inside line in that Mercedes AMG. Podium for them in Milan in the first round of the championship as they move their way up another position, only for P9, just outside of the points positions for the time being. But this scrap has been going on for the last few laps, and it continues to do so here.
Yeah, 9th, 10th and 11th there, all in your screen. Okamoto, of course, one of the guys, and Kawakami, who started on that wet compound tyre. Didn't really work out for them, though. Although, I say Wiggins-Warren, we have not really mentioned him at all this race. The reason being, he's 10 seconds off the back of this fight. The Malaysian driver just not really getting to grips here today. Struggling, but still in the race. You've got to be in it to win it, although it'll be a bit of a miracle now for Wiggins-Warren for that to happen.
We need to hope for some kind of safety car or divine intervention for the Malaysian driver. Right, Kawakami, can he do anything to depose of Okamoto? These two drivers, of course, were on the wet tyres at the start of this race, and oh, how the tables have turned, because they're battling for now 10th and 11th place after making their way up quite nicely through the field in the first phase of it. And you can see the dry conditions now really looking quite prominent out on this track, and even a bit of sunshine beginning to creep through the clouds as it stands. Heading through towards this final sector, and you'd imagine that Kawakami, if he's going to line something up, it'll be out of the last turn and down that start-finish straight, using the slipstream to his advantage. In front, you've got Nebatani being passed there by Sasaki in the Mercedes AMG and going through quite easily. I wonder if Okamoto or indeed Kawakami can use Nebatani, as you refer to him, the rolling roadblock, to their advantage.
I mean, he is. He's still out there. What's he? What points is he trying to play? Now
Wow.
he's finally in the pits now. He's going, you know what? Yeah, I did want to come last in this race. Do you reckon he's got money on the race? He's throwing it. Yeah, not opportunistic from him. Meanwhile, Okamoto and Kawakami side by side. These guys put on a great race in these two front engine cars here, Lexus and Nissan for both, as Okamoto stays ahead and Nebatani going onto the softs now, maybe to, I don't know, be at the end of the race, I guess. I just don't know. He's now 10 seconds off the back of Wiggers Warren, who was 10 seconds off the back of Kawakami. So different postcode now.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a disappointing race for Nissan in particular because they scored points with Mikołaj Sejak in the opening round of the season in Milan. Fourth place for them at the checkered flag. They're not going to be scoring here this afternoon if it stays as it is. However, there is another twist in the sail by the looks of things because it looks like there's some more rain on the horizon. So we were saying about the circuit beginning to dry out, but now you can see the windscreen wiper coming on for Takuma Sasaki, who pulled out a 1.4 second lead over Moriyama, your former pole sitter. So how are they going to play this? If you're the top two, do you decide to gamble or do you play it safe and wait for everybody else to blink? But the problem is that they're arriving to those conditions first before everybody else.
Yeah, my mastery of the Japanese language isn't very great, Tom, but I imagine there's some expletives going on in the cockpit of that Subaru right now, Nebatani having just come off the intermediate tyres and it now starts to drizzle again. But even so, too late to do that. So, yeah, now you're in a weird position because you have, 7 laps left of the race, 8 laps, or including this one now. And if you're Suzuki or Moriyama, you're the ones you have it all to lose. So, but it does look like Sasaki is leading from Moriyama in a way that I don't think Moriyama can get this gap down. The gap has been 1.2 seconds, 1.3 for the last few laps. So what he really needs to do now, Moriyama, is just maybe make that call at the right point. If the rain continues to the point where you have to change tyres, of course, as we said before, these slicks, if you keep them warm, they can run for quite a while into the wet conditions. So if it just stays as a drizzle, it will just make it a bit more annoying for the drivers, to be honest, rather than it being, Okamoto there, not happy, weaving and flashing the lights at Kawakami. Didn't really see what happened there. Maybe he's just frustrated being held up, but mate, that's racing. You gotta get by the guy. You can't just flash him.
He was doing that down the start-finish straight, actually, wasn't it? It was like watching a Christmas tree from Woolworths or something along the lines of that, because he was trying to find his way through and just couldn't get it done under braking. And I think, as you say, a bit of frustration starting to creep through for the Japanese driver in the Japanese machine. Now, Saya Suzuki, fantastic job on those soft combat of tyres, and this is exactly what we were talking about, Jimmy. Those soft tyres are working out quite nicely because now we're getting to that point. If the rain comes down and it gets to a heavier intensity before the end of the race, that could be the right strategy call because he's made his way up through the field and now he's got that place on merit. So if he changes over onto the intermediate tyres at the right time, he can hold that position, if not maybe gain some towards the end.
Yeah, well listen, I mean, this guy started 10th. He started 10th in this BMW after a poor qualifying and has basically, through strategy and, of course, good driving, has just dragged himself up the field into P4 and in real contention, maybe, if he gets the right call here, putting himself onto the podium for Team BMW there, which is a great result for them. And of course would match kind of what they did in Milan as well. So, I mean, obviously you want to win these things, but consistent finishes as well. Oh, I read the wrong thing there, sorry. Yeah, well, BMW were actually 8th in Milan, so...
They were fourth at the end of the season, yeah.
Any points are good, is what I was going to say there, but be consistent and point scoring is the way to win championships. Of course, winning is better, but sometimes you just have someone come out, win an event, and then not score again for the rest of the year. We saw it, I think, last year in the grand finals, people going to the finals ahead and then getting decimated because they just couldn't be consistent in that last event.
Yeah, consistency creates champions, as the old adage goes, and you can see consistency is very much at the forefront of the Porsche teams, right? Because they're still leading this race. They won the opening round of the season, just to remind you as well. Porsche leading this one then from the Audi driver of Moriyama. Kadaka still sitting there in a lonely third place. He's on that medium combat of tyre. His drop back of touching distance, so I think the win may be off the cards here for Kadaka. But again, if that rain comes down, I have to say that it's still looking quite bright and quite sunny out there. And those windscreen wipers that we saw a lap or two ago, they've stopped now. So was it just sort of a brief dalliance at a downpour rather than a deluge? Because it doesn't look like it's on the horizon. The problem is, though, the climate here at Fuji, as you can see with the mountain in the background, does have a habit of changing quite quickly and quite suddenly. And just as I've said that, the windscreen wipers are on again.
I have this image of a series producer, Yamauchi-san, sitting there with a rain switch, just going on, off, on, off, on, off, just to mess with these guys. But you can see on the weather radar there, we are going to get some heavy rain just before the end of the race. I mean, that first cell is just going to miss us, but that second cell, not so much. So, what do you do? I think, you've got to be brave. I mean, I race at the Nürburgring in real life, of course, at much longer circuit than it is here. And if it just rains a little bit, your engineer goes, well, tough, deal with it. Because to change tyres takes so long to do that, it's not worth it. Okamoto coming in now. For what? Is he going to go to an Inter and just hope to maybe...
I think he's gambling. I think he has to, because the race has come undone for him, hasn't it, really, here? I mean, he was up at the sharp end of the field at the start of this race.
Too early, surely.
I would agree with you, absolutely. But if the rain comes down at heavy intensity, he's going for the intermediate time. I think he has to try something, because at the moment, he's going to score nothing. If he tries it and it works out, look at the rain there coming down.
Yeah.
If they time it well and it works out okay, then perfect.
There's spray already. Maybe this is the call. Maybe Okamoto's made an absolute blinder of a call here. But the thing is, it's only one lap, and he's far behind. So I don't think we're going to see the rest of the field coming in. And bear in mind, all these guys can get an idea of what everyone's doing around them. So they probably all know at this point that two of the drivers have gone for intermediates.
It's about 21 seconds he's lost as a result of that pit stop there. So that's the sort of gap that he's now got to make up. It depends, obviously, if everyone pits in front of him. If these drivers can keep heat in those dry tyres and it doesn't rain too heavily, then they're fine. But if it rains really heavily and over all of the track, then they've got to come in and it becomes a bit of a moot point. And that early pit stop there for Okamoto in the Nissan could prove to be absolutely inspired. The final sector, again, see the rain, but you see it starting to come down a little bit. There's a bit of rain beginning to fall on the surface here. And again, if it gets to that heavy intensity, and we saw the radar, there was a big sort of black cloud beginning to come through. Look at it down the start-finish straight already.
Too early. 31.7, the best sector there by Hishima on medium compound tyres. Okamoto does a 32.8 through there. It's too early, but the rain is coming down now.
It's changing so quickly though, isn't it? Look at it.
Yeah, I think he's just gone one lap too early. I appreciate the gamble, the love of the game, and then Kokura and Suzuki both going wide into T1 there, so maybe, Tom, as you say, maybe now is the time to be on an intermediate compound tyre. Kawakami coming in as well, someone who started in that wet compound tyre, so he'll be interesting to see where he comes out compared to Okamoto. Those guys were pretty much joined at the hip before Okamoto boxed, so this will be a good factor as to whether Okamoto went too early or not. Wiggers Warren went with him, by the way, as well in last place there. He needs to think of something to try and gain back a little bit of time, but now we're going to see what is going to be a bit of a struggle bus for these guys. It's very, very tricky out there in these conditions. A slick tyre, of course, really can't move any water whatsoever. Any sort of standing water and you just aquaplane. It's very, very scary. And right now Kokura leading from Suzuki in 5th position. Them just about keeping together. I'm interested to see what Sasaki and Moriyama do. Sasaki has really, he's just flourished in these conditions. Already gained 3 seconds over Moriyama, 3.7 seconds. The gap was only 1.2 before it started raining, Tom.
Yeah, we've seen that Porsche looking pretty good in mixed conditions before. And again, I wonder if it's just the case of it's a little bit better balanced, a bit better optimised, and he's just getting the better of those conditions, keeping the heat into the tyres. Let's have a look at this down the start-finish straight then. So we're looking at Morimoto and Sasaki. This is in 7th and 8th place, and Morimoto's just going to go clean off into the car park down at T1 there, missing his braking point in the wet conditions, and the Mercedes driver following him through as well.
Fastest first sector last lap was Okamoto, 22.8 on the wet compound tyres. No, sorry, it was Wiggers Warren on 22.7. For the middle sector though, let's have a look. Okamoto, kind of similar through there. So the intermediate tyre is quicker, I think, but not by a lot at the moment.
I think the fast speed corners, so the medium speed corners in that first sector, that's where the intermediate tyre is going to come into the fore. But so what's the gap now down to? What, 19, 18 seconds? It was 22 seconds 1 lap ago. So that's 4 seconds in a lap.
But where Kawakami stayed out one lap longer, he actually ended up jumping Okamoto by a couple of seconds there. So Kawakami, he called that correctly.
Yeah.
But now, as you say, they're gaining. Every time we look at the delta between Kawakami and Sasaki, it goes down by another second. Those last lap times, really you're looking at Okamoto and Wiggers Warren there, because Kawakami just boxed, and you're seeing they're just not quite as quick at the moment. That rain is just...
It's pattering, isn't it? But it's not. Again, it doesn't look massively heavy there, does it? So that's the risk, isn't it? If you're the race leader at this point, you can't go too early, because if you do, you're going to completely scupper your race lead. There's a bit of standing water here and there, but look, water going into the braking zone, but nothing when you're in the middle of the corner.
Yeah, this is slicks right now. It's slick conditions. Even with that little bit of a wet patch on circuit, you just go out on the slicks and deal with it, because it's worth so much more time in the dry areas of the circuit. And we did see it was only a small cell. It wasn't like the start of the race where that weather radar was completely filled with rain. It's just a little tiny bit on there, and that's really what you're seeing now. Skodaka there in the Lamborghini is starting actually to catch Moriyama. Moriyama really struggling on these warm, soft tyres, as is Sasaki as well, and Kodaka starting to come back at him. So for some context, Moriyama last lap was 1.5 seconds slower, and Kodaka there flashing his lights saying, "Hey mate, here I come, look in your mirrors." here comes Team Lamborghini.
Yeah, Jun Hashima as well might be on the back of Suzuki before the end of this race. Down the start-finish straight we go then. Moriyama coming under pressure from Kodaka. Last time around, 146.2 for Moriyama. Kodaka, 144.9. He has taken chunks out of him over the course of that last lap. And surely it's a case of when and not if he's going to be challenging for that second position. This would be a phenomenal result for the Lamborghini team. If you remember back to when we were in Milan, it was an absolute dog's dinner for Kravchenko. Finished last on the board here, and they could be getting the runners-up spot here in Tokyo.
Yeah, Kodaka right now is the fastest car of the lead three at the moment. But we'll see if he can keep that going. I mean, he's got a bit of a way to go to get to Sasaki. I think Moriyama is a real possibility here for Kodaka. Sasaki, maybe not. This would be fantastic for the guys at Lamborghini. As we said previously, they've never really had a strong finishing position before. This would be great for them.
I'll tell you what, for Sasaki, will have won in this race. It was that time where the rain came down and he pulled out that gap. It was about 1.2 seconds. It's now up to 3.6, and that might just be enough to save him here, despite the pace difference that Kodaka has got in this one. On board then with the man who returned after a 3-year absence to the Gran Turismo World Series. It's like he has never been away, because he is closing up onto the back of Moriyama. Now down to under a second for the first time. Middle sector, pretty even Stevens between himself and Moriyama. But again, Moriyama's tyres, we know they're getting pretty worn now, those soft shod machine in second place.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote of that very famous racing movie. It's too soon, Junior. I think what's happened with Moriyama there is to push a bit too hard too early on those soft tyres, and it's just used them up a little bit. And now here comes Kodaka there on the medium tyres, just kept them alive a bit longer. Of course, they last longer as well, and is now able just to pull back the gap and try and find them a bit more speed. So the gap at currently 0.8 of a second, much better on the brakes there than Moriyama as well. And he's only got about a lap and a half left now to make this move, so it's going to have to be a real push time for Team Lamborghini.
Yeah, and here's the thing for Kodaka, as you say, needs to make that move. He was only about 0.4 of a second quicker last time around, still definitely faster, but nowhere near as fast as he was the lap prior to that. So again, you wonder whether Moriyama is just going to be able to do enough to be able to hang on. It's going to be through these sort of medium speed corners and then the slower speed corners where he's going to struggle to get the traction out of it. And this is a fantastic end to the race. Not quite for the race win, but for the podium positions here. I don't think Kokeman's going to feature in this one because he's, 3.3 seconds off the back of them. But for Moriyama and Kodaka, this one is going to go right down to the wire.
So here we go then, just over a lap left. Moriyama in second place. Remind us, his debut event here in the GT World Series. A fantastic debut for the 18-year-old Audi driver. But of course now, maybe experience showing from the drivers around him. Sasaki managing to build a gap at the front, 3.1 seconds. All he's got to do now is keep that for one more lap, and he'll take Team Porsche to its second win of the season. But the real story, the real fight here is between Audi and Lamborghini. Two very similar cars underneath, not so much on the exterior. And here comes Kodaka now. He's close enough. He's flashing the lights. It's in the toe now, Tom. This could be it.
Further behind as well, Hashima's right on the back of Suzuki. That's a position for points as well in the overall standings. Down the start-finish straight we go then to be in the final lap here at Fuji. It's Moriyama versus Kodaka, the rookie versus the returning veteran in the Manufacturers' Cup. Audi versus Lamborghini. Down the start-finish straight and into the braking zone. Suzuki and Hashima exchanging places. Looks like Hashima's managed to get the better of him. No room through though for Kodaka into turn 1. Good exit out of turn 2 and in towards the braking zone of turn 3 will help his charge here as he flashes the light in that Lamborghini to find his way past the Audi.
We've seen this a couple of times. Moriyama just can't quite get the car rotated at the centre of the corner there and just loses time compared to the Kodaka behind. Is now all over the rear spoiler of the R8. Will he go for a move on the inside here as Moriyama puts him wide onto the grass? There goes Kodaka up the inside on the last lap in the Lamborghini, but can he hold it?
That's absolutely sensational then. Side by side they go on the exit of the corner. They're going to come down to the braking zone of turn 10. Moriyama will have the inside line. If he can hold track position, he'll hold off the challenge for Kodaka, who ducks back into the slipstream and surely will dive to the inside, but no, because Moriyama defends it. Kodaka tries to go the long way round. They're going to flick it into the left hand, and the Lamborghini's there on the aprons of the corner. A fantastic move for Yuki Kodaka in the Lamborghini. Can he though hold it to the checkered flag with just one more sector to go here at Fuji? Kodaka has got second place against his countryman then, and there's just a couple of corners remaining. Moriyama back through. on the inside, but as he got the line, Kataka's on the curb. Side by side, they still go as they come through into the final turn. It's Lamborghini versus Audi. Takuma Sasaki for Porsche is going to win this one on the soft combat of tyres, and it's a drag to the line between Kataka and Moriyama here in the Manufacturers' Cup in Tokyo. To the checkered flag we go. Porsche take 2 wins in 2 races, but who gets second at the line? Kataka versus Moriyama, and Yuki Kataka takes it by just 19 thousandths of a second. What a race, what a finish.
Wow, I mean that is exactly what we want to see. As Tom, you say, the returning veteran versus a man making his debut. What a debut that is. Podium for Audi here. He'll be upset that he couldn't quite keep his pole position and of course ends up in third there behind Kataka. But what a fight there for the last lap. But of course, all on his own at the front there, Sasaki making that move and making the second win in a row for Team Porsche. So here is a replay of that last lap. Look how close they get here. They're both in the side draft of each other and just at the line there. Had it been only a couple of more meters, that Moriyama would have taken that away from Kataka, but that's not it. That's the race distance, and Kataka just about got there first. So amazing racing.
Absolutely sensational, and a great job from Jun Hashima in the Ferrari on that final lap as well to mug Sai Suzuki for 5th place. All important points on the board there for the Porsche team. And for Sasaki, well, that was a phenomenal race, and ultimately it was won in the last 10 laps of that. When he pulled out the gap, once the rain began to come down to 3.6 seconds, that was what secured him and just gave him enough of a buffer to hold on to that victory and hold on to that lead right down until the end of that race.
You know, maybe I was a bit critical of Sasaki at the start of this, saying he doesn't always have the ultimate pace, but there he showed his experience and knowledge of the car and circuit, and really delivered where it mattered. As you say, Tom, in that little difficult period there where it was just raining a little bit, he was able to put out 2 seconds, and that gap was it. That decided the race for him. And that pace, he'll be, as you can see, he was elated with that. I mean, great to see him, in my opinion, achieve his first win at these events. I mean, he has achieved victories before as part of teams, but to be there and really make that difference, that's the first time I've seen that from him as a driver.
Yeah, sensational job from Takuma Sasaki. Great for Porsche as well to make it 2 wins in 2 Gran Turismo World Series events in 2026. Let's have a look at some highlights though from that one. Well, it kicked off in dramatic style with Sasaki getting the race lead over Moriyama in the Audi in the opening corner of the race. Behind, we saw Suzuki coming through like a freight train. Had a little bit of contact though with Nebatani in the opening stages on the wet compound of tyre. The track then begun to dry out and we saw a divergence in strategies. Those who'd started on the wet tyres, the likes of Okamoto, Kawakami and Wignis Warren, etc., all began to struggle, and then we saw everybody else changing over onto the dry tyres for the middle stint of the race, and we saw this man, Sai Suzuki, coming through like a freight train in the middle part of it.
Yeah, it was a tricky one, this one. I mean, getting the strategy right, it was more guesswork, I think, than having informed opinion. But we saw this fight as well. Morimoto, Sasaki and Kawakami going through. Like Kawakami, what could have been for him, really? He had a terrible race on strategy. Morimoto there showing the difficulty of when the rain came down towards the end of the race. And, of course, here's that amazing finish between these two. Literally, had it been a couple more metres, I think that Moriyama would have got that place back.
Yeah, sensational end to that one. A drag to the line. What more could you want? Let's get confirmation of the results, though. It's Takuma Sasaki who takes the win for Porsche, who make it 2 wins in 2 GT World Series events ahead of Yuki Kataka, the returning driver for Lamborghini, in second. Moriyama on his debut in 3rd place ahead of Ryota Kokuben, Jun Hashima, and then Sai Suzuki completing the points finishes. Ultimately, Morimoto's got to be bitterly disappointed with how that worked out. But let's hear from our winner.
The winner of Round 2 for the Manufacturers' Cup, Takuma Sasaki. You like me saying that? That was good for me to say that, yeah.
今の聞けてよかったでしょ？
いやもうそれはもうも
Of
ちろん
course, of course.
So obviously, you know, you took first position pretty early on, and you just looked sort of comfortable. But I mean, I know my perspective of it isn't always, you know, the case. Was it a comfortable drive for you?
もう割と早めにもうポールについて結構もう落ち着いた感じで走ってたような気がしたんですけど、私の視点はドライバーの視点とはまた違うからどうでしたか？
いやもう今回のレース、一応最初1位にすぐに出ることができたんですけど、天候変化があって、もういつ雨雲が来るかもわからないし、もう最後まで気が抜けないので全然余裕じゃないです。はい。
Yeah, so this time, I was able to get in the lead fairly early on, but with the rain coming, not knowing when it's gonna start getting really wet, there was no time for me to relax at all.
Yeah, I mean, it looks relaxing from here.
こっちから見たら
That's not-
なんかこ
it's not
う
like-
リラックスしてるようには見えてるんですけど
Do you think then that the weather was the toughest part of this? What was the toughest part of this drive of this particular one?
じゃあ一番難しかったのは天候ですか？今回のレースで一番難しいと感じたのはどういったところでしょうか？
そうですね、車自体はすごく相性が良かったんで、天候変化がやっぱりすごく大事なのかなと思ってて、いつ雨のタイヤに変えるのかで、タイヤが雨で路面が濡れるので、それを見越して早めに交換して、その賭けに、出たというか、出た感じなんですけど、それも当たったし、ちょっと、天候の方が大事だったんじゃないですかね、その予測が。はい。
Yeah, so I mean, this time the weather was tough. The car itself was great. It was just the weather that was really important, and also just the random thing that I didn't really know what was going to happen. So it was really kind of a gamble to get on those tires early, getting ready for the wet. But that worked out. It paid off.
I mean, you did okay.
悪くなかったですよね。
Is Papa Serrano happy with you now?
セラーノパパは喜んでくれると思いますか？
はい、ハグしました。ハグ。
Yeah, I got a hug.
And now to get really serious and very, very technical, as I do, do you think doing the fun little dance when you came in helped?
すごくシリアスな質問をしますけど、入場時のちょっとした踊りがやっぱり効いたんじゃないですか？
いやもうそういうのをやっぱね見せていかないと、やっぱワクワクしてますよっていうのは心から表現することによってレースをより楽しめるかなって思うんで、自分のためにっていうか言い聞かせた感じで、こうルンルンルンと歩いてきた感じ。
Yeah, so I think that kind of thing is really important to show that I'm excited and make myself have fun, so that I'm kind of convincing myself.
It's a good strategy. You all need better signature dances, so we're going to work on this before Singapore, right? You could give them some tips. You can be their dance coach.
みんなのダンスコーチしてあげたらいいです
か？もうもちろん。
それぞれ
ぜひダンスコーチしますんで、すいません。
Maybe at the party, we'll do that.
パーティーでもいいですし。
Well, let's give them a huge round of applause. That's our Manufacturers Cup winner, round 2, Takuma Sasaki. Do you want your prize now? Would you like your prize now?
じゃあプライズもらいましょうか。
はい、お願いします。
Yeah, let's get the podiums then. Get this prize.
What a job from Takuma Sasaki. Let's get confirmation of the World Series points rankings, though, after 2 rounds in 26. So it's 2 wins from 2 rounds so far for the German manufacturer, continuing their superlative form from 2025. Porsche leading then from Ferrari. Lamborghini now up into 3rd in the standings, ahead of Audi, Mazda, and then Mercedes, Nissan, BMW, the final point scorers. Don't forget to vote for your Dunlop driver of the day on YouTube as well. Sasaki, Kadaka, or Moriyama. Which of those 3 drivers do you think has put in the strongest performance here in the Manufacturers' Cup tonight? Well, just moments away then from the podium ceremony about to begin, and let's welcome our drivers then on to the stage. A fantastic race weekend here for the Gran Turismo World Series in 2026 for the Manufacturers' Cup. Our top 3 finishers welcoming themselves and being welcomed by the crowd here in Polyphony Digital on to the stage. So then, time for our top 3 finishers to enjoy the podium celebrations. 3rd place for Sota Moriyama for Audi, the 18-year-old making his debut in the GT World Series this weekend in Tokyo, and a great way for him to bounce on to the world stage here. For 2nd place for Yuki Kadaka, he'll be absolutely delighted with that. 19 thousandths of a second separating himself and Moriyama at the checkered flag, and a great return to the rostrum for the Italian manufacturer. But for Porsche then, it's Takuma Sasaki who makes it 2 wins in 2 rounds as he stands on the top step of the podium for his first time this season and for Porsche's second. Celebrations then about to begin, but before we present the trophies, it's now time for the national anthem. The national anthem of Germany plays out for Porsche, our winning manufacturer here for the GT World Series in Tokyo. And it plays out for Takuma Sasaki, the winning driver, as well. And now time for the trophies to be presented to our top 3 finishers. Third place for Sota Moriyama, the 18-year-old driving for Audi's debut event. And what a way to announce yourself as part of some of the greats in Gran Turismo. For second place there, Yuki Kodaka, returning after a 3-year absence as well. And for Takuma Sasaki, part of the team that won the Manufacturers' Cup in 2025 as well. Dunlop's Katsumi Kasai presenting the 3rd and 2nd place trophies. First of all there to Sota Moriyama. Pole position and a podium at his first ever event. Very well done to that young man. Second place then for Yuki Kodaka. For Lamborghini, a great return to the rostrum as well after a fair few years in the doldrums, it has to be said. I think they'll be delighted with that one, especially after how things worked out at the opening round of the season where they failed to finish in the points. In fact, they were last at the checkered flag and they bounced back to a podium position here in Tokyo, with Kodaka behind the wheel, really getting the better of those conditions and having a fantastic strategy call with those medium tyres towards the end of the race. However, the man who really made the difference at the sharp end was Takuma Sasaki. What a fantastic drive from him. Ultimately, the final stint of that one just giving him enough of a buffer over the rest of the field. Holding his nerve when others faltered. Making it 2 wins in 2 rounds for Porsche. His first win of the season as well. It's Takuma Sasaki and Porsche who are on top then here in Tokyo. Kazunori Yamauchi presenting the winner's trophy, the Gran Turismo Series producer, and sheer delight as the celebrations now begin. Highlights for yourself, Jimmy?
I think it has to be that middle stint, honestly. We spoke about it a couple of times. Sasaki is able to make that difference in those tricky conditions, and that's what won them this race today. But of course, we have to give a special mention to Moriyama. What a performance for your debut. As you say, pole position under huge pressure and managing a podium in very, very tricky conditions.
And that is round 2 of the Manufacturers' Cup of the Gran Turismo World Series finished. But don't go anywhere as our never-ending, unrelenting quest to find the greatest sim racer in the world continues with the Nations Cup in a little bit. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.